Cool.
We're recording. Welcome, everyone. This is the fourth episode of the Conscious Living Community, and I'm very pleased to have a good friend and guest tonight, as well as some regulars here in this little gathering. We have Dave Elleray. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Lawrence. How are you doing?
Not bad at all. And it's funny, actually, because week to week, I'm kind of going with the flow about the kind of the topics, about what we're exploring in this conversation. And I think it was towards the end of last week, something, I don't know, maybe been showing up to me more and more about our relationship with nature and what the current set of circumstances are really showing us and revealing to us, pointing us in a certain direction. And then in that moment, I thought of Dave. I had a conversation with Dave. It's actually on this same YouTube channel 4 or 5 years ago, and it was called Falling Back in Love with Life. Can you remember that conversation?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Maybe you shared your story. So it was basically, I thought, Dave, because I myself have been reconnecting with nature, as in I go to the park most mornings. Whether I'm meditating with the ducks, I'm seeing the spring blossom coming out, I'm basically getting into a really quiet space, and it's just beginning to open things up to me and reveal to me how busy we can all be in the day to day. And obviously within the context of everything that's happening right now, an opportunity to reassess, reevaluate, as well as, and I will emphasize this, provide that support, help, reaching out to all those in our community who maybe are struggling with this. But for me, that outward, as member Sam said last week, life is an outstretched hand, not a clenched fist. So there's something about connecting us in our humanity, but also realizing we can never be separate from nature. So Dave, I remember we had that conversation last 4 or 5 years ago, where you had your moment. I think it was about, I don't know, maybe you can introduce yourself, about a bird flew past you and you realized something that kind of was like life-changing.
It was life-changing. I was a person who struggled a lot with anger and depression, and it's quite violent. I think the story's online in a couple of places, but I spent a bit of time in prison, a lot of time drinking, doing drugs, depressed, very reactive on prescription medication. I spent a lot of time as well, but I've always had a fascination with the natural world. I'd studied ecology at college. I failed it. I failed my college course. And after that, I became a surgeon. So the natural world has always been a massive part of my life. And it was actually after listening to Sydney Banks that I got introduced to this by a lady called Sue, and then one day I listened to her talk by Sid Banks. It was just a 4-minute snippet on YouTube, and I went for a walk. And it's funny because I've heard many people. we gave a talk in South Africa, and I was explaining this to somebody about how did you come across it. I explained it, and they were like, "Oh!" And then the big deal was made out. It was all in the jackdaw's eyes. I observed a jackdaw. I just saw a jackdaw, and it happened to glance at me. That's the last thing I remember before something that I can't explain took place. And people were very quick to go, "Oh, the jackdaw did it." And it was, no, it wasn't anything to do with the jackdaw. The jackdaw just looked at me because I was something new on its landscape. But what happened as a result of that, after I listened to this Sid talk and went for this walk, and this you could call it an interaction. It looked at me and I looked at it. I can't explain what happened. To this day, I can't explain it. It's not a logical thing. It was It was something that happened through me. As I've come to realize, everything, the only place anything ever takes place. And this thing that happened through me, I could, if I could kind of put some words to it, which are not it. Absolutely, and I know people who've had very similar experiences. They describe it as a wordless place, a space that there is no language that comes close to touching it. And the only thing that I could really describe it as being would be the most beautiful unconditional love, understanding. Understanding? I don't know. It was beyond anything I can put into words. And it's funny because a couple of months before that, I'd had a very similar experience. But in fact, the one before was, if it can be deeper, it was deeper. But that didn't allow me to wake up to something that would change my life. It did in one respect. It showed me that reality, behind reality, there is a spiritual force. And it allowed me at that point to ask for things and things be delivered in a way that I could never, were beyond the realms of fair odds, should I say. It was like I would ask for things and things would come into my life that in a way that I could never explain, and were far too beautiful for it to be coincidence, or far too improbable.
Hey, something there, just for the benefit of people watching. When something is revealed in that way, the way I see it more and more now is something falls away. Something is stripped off, but it happens like that. You've maybe got other words, but what did fall away? What was stripped off?
I suppose I could say everything, apart from presence. In the first experience that I'm speaking about, everything, apart from presence. There was nothing to see. There wasn't. I was actually stood on a road at this time when this thing took place the first time. I was stood in the middle of a road. I was absolutely wankered. And I'd been in a big fight up in the northwest coast of Scotland, and I decided I was walking home 400 miles.
Oh, yes.
And I think it was at this point I reached one of the lowest parts of my life, and it was at this part where this night when this event took place. But it was if I was to describe that, it was the most beautiful unconditional love. Like being saturated, wrapped up in cotton wool, and absolutely drenched in love, or just pure love. Just the most. That was single-handedly the most beautiful experience I've ever experienced. And when I came round, I found myself sat down in the middle of the road, crying my eyes out, screaming, "Don't leave me!" It was very dramatic. I had a black eye and a bitten face, but it was after that I remember a couple of days. The next day, I actually went back to the van where I was stopping with the lads, and spent the whole day asleep because I had such a bad head. I slept on the side of the road that night, and it snowed. And I was dressed pretty much like this: hoodie, pair of jeans, and it snowed, and it was so cold and so bad. But it was the day after when I remembered this event taking place. And I just asked it for help, and it delivered in the most miraculous way. I won't go into it because it's a very long story. But at that point, I knew I was safe. At that point, I knew, well, when I say I knew I was safe, I knew I was safe in that scenario. And I kept on asking it for help. I kept on asking it for help. And what I would describe as miracles started coming into my life. And one of the miracles was a lady phoned me up and said, I've got a tree for you to look at. Would you come and have a look? And I went round, and she didn't have a tree for me to look at. But she told me that the universe had told her to speak to me. And would I listen to her? And so I agreed. I was a bit pissed off at the time that she'd called me after work to go and look at this tree, and there wasn't a tree. But to this day, I'm never more thankful. I could never be more thankful for what happened, because it took a man who was at his wit's end, who was desperate, who was suicidal, who was planning to kill himself, and introduced me to a conversation, a talk that Sid, after 9 weeks, I eventually typed in Sid into YouTube, and it was on this day I then went for a walk, and a very similar event took place. Another one of these events took place. And what the first event showed me was that there is something beyond this. And then what the second event showed me was there is something behind this. So the first event woke me up that there is a spiritual something. And then the second event woke me up, and this is just me kind of describing it. I can't explain it. But the second event kind of showed me that there is something there is a spiritual reality behind this. The reality that each and every single one of us encounters is a spiritual happening. Every single last bit of it is a force that is inexplicable to the intellect. It can never be found. It can't be studied by science. When I say it can't be found by science. You will never find it on a memory stick. You will never find a photograph of it. You can't weigh it, you can't hold it, you can't touch it. It's not something that will ever be found. I know in Sweden, when we were working out there, I was like, what the hell's that building, Hans? And he went, that's a hadron collider, I think they call it, where they're trying to find the God particle. I just wanted to knock on the door and say, you've spent millions on this thing, but you won't find the God particle. If it's a particle, it's creation. You've wasted an awful lot of money if that's what you were truly looking for. But I know that it is discoverable because I discovered it. And it's been the most beautiful, this was 7 years ago now, and this has been the most beautiful, inexplicable, magical chapter of my life so far. It's been mind-blowing. The things that have happened, the places we've gone to, we've met Jenny, and the places we've gone and worked, and I think life has gone from what I believe to be predictable, mundane, 9 to 5, which is a tree surgeon. It wasn't. It was set about 6:30 till 5, 6:30 till 6. But it took my life, and it completely and utterly transformed it. And this transformation happened in a second. It got me really interested after I came across it. I didn't know what the hell to do. I nearly went and joined the Buddhist temple. I nearly became a monk because I just didn't know what to do with my life. I was like, my life isn't the same. I am not there. I'm not who I was. I don't do the same things that I once did. I don't fear life like I once did. I live a life of, I went from a life of real depression and sadness and grief and hatred and racism and all these mental kind of beliefs. And in one moment it was wiped clean. And all of a sudden the world was a beautiful place. I was beautiful. People were beautiful. Nature was beautiful. The world is beautiful. Existence is beautiful. The racism died. There's 0 point in it. We're all the same thing. And I remember speaking to Jen about when she woke up. I remember saying, Jen, what was it that kind of really hit you when you woke up to what you woke up to? She said that there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of in this lifetime. And I said, that's exactly what I experienced. I came away with this deep knowing that humanity isn't consciously evolved enough yet to utilize the true power of consciousness, that its magic, the force that it is, the potential that lies within it for what we would call miracles is an everyday thing to consciousness. Sorry, I was making room for Rusty.
That's all right. Welcome, Rusty. So there's something I wanted to ask you there. Just thinking about where we are in the world right now. Because someone might be watching this going, that's all well and good, but I've got bigger issues in my life right now than seeking enlightenment, which is often, you know, the shorthand. But you just said you had a realization of what Jenny shared with you. There's nothing to be afraid of. Now, for some people, it's like, I'm very afraid right now.
Yep.
And you also said, we're not, this is just a metaphor, we're not at the sufficient level of consciousness, awareness, understanding, seeing who we really are at a deep level. Well, in what way, and I know I'm directing this, in what way is the current set of circumstances we're facing collectively an invitation, an opportunity? In the conversation we had on Saturday, nature's teaching us right now. Nature's talking to us. I'm interested in the individual and the collective, Dave, so I'm going in a roundabout way. In what way can the current circumstances be an opportunity for everyone to look in this direction?
I think I had two questions in that. I'll take the first bit first, and I'll try and remember the second bit. Well, no, I'll take the second bit first. How can this teach us something? I think roughly is basically the second part of the question, seemed like to me. It seems like, to me, there's an awful lot of suffering going on right now. People are dying, people are ill. It's a situation that I won't wish upon anybody. It's a situation that is happening. Can't change it. It's taking place. I notice an awful lot of, I hear the numbers of deaths each day on the news. That's a terrible thing. I live near a village called Staveley, and we're pretty much close in the UK to the death toll of my village. The entire population of my village nearly gone at this present moment. But I also find there's a lot of people who are finding time now. There are people who are slowing down. Humanity has been in such a rush, especially since the invention of these things and modern communication. It's like, I know in my own lifetime, I've seen life suddenly go woof since instant messaging came around and mobile phones where it can be communicated with anywhere, and emails can ping from one side of the world to the other. And we've got transportation things that can take people and things from one place to another very, very quickly. Life has gone into fast forward, and all of a sudden people are slowing down. I remember being with Jen's mum one day, walking out, and she was talking about how busy the world was. And as I walked out, I pointed up at 4 wood pigeons sat on the telephone line. I said, when was the last time you saw a person, a human being, just stopped observing life? Just stopped. When was the last time you saw people doing what those pigeons are doing? Just, there's nowhere I need to be. I'm just going to sit here quietly. We're always busy doing something. And I feel like people have really started to slow down. And I also feel like people's lives are getting put into perspective. They're starting to see what's truly valuable. You know, there's beauty, there's real beauty coming out. There's people going around and helping people, streets helping one another, communities helping one another. I know the NHS put out help, please come and help us. I think it was something like over 400, close to 500,000 people said, I want to help. That to me shows the true beauty of humanity. And I feel like this is a beautiful opportunity for people to really start to observe that, to put our differences aside and start to see the true nature of people. When the shit hits the fan, people come together. And I think that the quietening down is also a beautiful opportunity for people to take stock of their lives and try and start to understand what it is they want. I remember, I'm not religious in any way, shape or form. I'm not religious. I was brought up Christian. I went to church, I sung in the choir and stuff as a kid, but I'm not religious. But I do have a deep respect for the message of Jesus. I think it's been totally misunderstood. Totally and utterly misunderstood. When I've done my own research into it and I've done my own reading and done my own listening, there's a statement, there was a question asked of Jesus, and the question was, how do you best serve God? And this will kind of lead on to the first part of your question, sorry, Lance. How do you best serve God? And Jesus' response was very, very simple. The best way you can serve God is by doing that you love. By doing that you love. And I feel like people are starting to get the time to question, what is it how have I been living my life? What do I truly want to do in my life? And then my dad got a text off his mate the other day that said, I've just spent 10 days with my wife. I know I'm not retiring now. It's allowing people to take stock of their lives, to slow down and go, wow, bloody hell, we've been moving fast. And in the quieter mind is a beautiful thing. Many people are so afraid of their own minds. And so many people are actually going to have to sit with it. It's going to be deeply uncomfortable for some people. But I really feel like it'll be a real eye-opener for a lot of people. I really feel like that is an opportunity for growth. And so going back to the first part of your question, you know, what is there really not to be afraid of? Why wouldn't you be afraid, almost, I think is roughly the rough translation I took from your question. Humanity is very quick. Human beings are very quick to separate themselves, to isolate. Yeah, we have separated ourselves from nature. Humanity has suggested that it is on top of a pyramid, and we call it the natural world, as though the human world is something different. We describe all other beings that are born of this planet exactly the same place as we're born of, as animals, plants. But human beings, no, we're different. I'm sure if you were to get down and ask an ant will go, oh no, you lot are all animals, but us ants, we're different. But it's an illusion. Humanity is as an integral part of this planet. Humanity isn't one of human beings' great inventions. Human beings didn't invent humanity. There's a force that created the natural world, and it created us within it. We are simply an organism the same as a fungus, or a bacteria, or a bird. But we've got such a big ego, and this ego is the thing that's really evident. You look around, it's only in ego is the separation taking place. So where is this separation? Where is the separation between humanity and the natural world? Well, it's a thought, it's a belief. It takes place within people's minds, and they don't question it. And we have to question it. Oh, we don't have to question it. It's up to the individual. But the simple fact of the matter is humanity is an integral part of nature, and it is going against nature. It sees nature as something to overcome. Human beings fight everything. We fight everything. At the moment, we've got an invisible war. We're fighting our invisible war against the invisible enemy. Fight it, fight it, fight it. Have you noticed the language we use? We fight everything. Fight this, fight that, fight mental illness, fight this. There's no peace found in war. You cannot bomb your way to peace. You cannot fight your way to peace. You cannot fight your way to health. It's everything that everybody is looking for is within themselves. And the day that I woke up to this, and subsequent experiences since that day, have shown me that everything is, anybody who has an experience of God, it doesn't happen to them. It's not out there. It comes through them. You know, Jesus disappeared off into the desert, I think it was, for 40 days and for 40 nights. And in that time, he realized God. And Muhammad, my sister's got a Quran, and she was given this man's Quran, his most prized Quran. He gave it to my sister, and my sister reads it, and she was telling me about Muhammad. And Muhammad is a man who realized God. And again, he realized God, realized God. Realization does not take place outside of our being. There is no realization outside of the mind. And anybody who has a realization of God will realize it is absolute totality. This separate self, this separation from this separate being, this separate Dave, it's a story within the mind of thought. It's a ball of memories that I carry around about myself. Who are you? Well, I'm Dave. I remember I'm called Dave. Tell me a bit about yourself. Well, I'm an ex-tree surgeon. You know, I've done this, I've done that. I like this, I like that. I'm straight into my intellect, my memories, and I'm assuming that I'm giving over the impression that this is who I am. But on that day, stood on the side of on the fell side, when with that just an observation of a jackdaw. This behind the scenes made itself very prevalent, very, if that's the right word, very obvious. And it was, to this day, I can't describe it. I can't describe it. But it left me with a deep knowing that everything is it. Coronavirus, technology, anything, you know, people think that the electronic world, well, that's not nature. It's totally nature. Mobile phones are nature. There are some crows that use sticks for tools. We make mobile phones. There are some apes that use rocks to break things open. There are There's octopus that use things to hide themselves, shells and stuff like that. They use tools, and we use mobile phones and aeroplanes. You see, when you look at humanity and you realize it's not separate from nature, you realize that everything that it creates is also has to be nature. This is nature, another form of nature. But it's not organic, Dave. It's not bionic. It's not biological. It's created by nature. It's a tool. It's part of the natural world because everything is part of the natural world. And when somebody starts to see that everything is simply one thing, this includes life and death. One of my favorite questions again from Jesus was, tell us, how will our end be? Tell us, Jesus, how will our end be? His actual name was Yeshua. Tell us, Yeshua, how will our end be? And his response was beautiful. He said, I take it from your question that you have found the beginning. And he said, blessed is he who takes his place in the beginning, for he will know the end. And he will not taste death. I take it from your question, you found out where you were before you were born. Where were you before you were born? Take it from your question, you found where you were before you were incarnated. That you ask me what the end is. Blessed is he who takes his place in the beginning, for he will know the end. Both being the same place. Another way this was highlighted by him was he said, that ancient triple question, apparently it's an ancient triple question of, where did we come from? Where are we going? And who are we? You came from the light. You are going towards the light. You are the light. It was a conversation of non-duality. It was a conversation of singleness, wholeness, oneness. And this, when you really look at these statements, one of the things I like to ask people is, what's life? People who come to us with problems. First of all, I like to ask them, what's life? What is it? What is it to be alive in this existence, in this experiential happening, in this life stuff, in this living? To be alive, what is that life stuff? You know, many of us walk through life. Very few people actually ask that question. And it's beautiful because I don't think I've come across one single person yet who's gone, oh, I know exactly what it is. They've gone, I don't know. And it's interesting because here we are in this life stuff, walking through life, thinking that we know something about life, anything about life. And yet the very essence of it is a divine mystery. It's quite a humbling thought. Very essence of everything is a divine mystery. The light. That was a biblical term for consciousness. The light. The power that wherever you shine it, you experience, like a torch in the dark. The light. Where is this light? Well, it's within us. You are the light. And I think when people start to see that, when people start to put two and two together and make one, it allows them to come out of fear. And they come out of fear because they realize, first and foremost, they're not what they think they are. And neither is anything else. It's a divine mystery. I don't know anybody who, I know of people who've had enlightened experiences and they cannot describe God. But they know it's real. And to me, it was more real, that experience. I knew that that was the realest of reals, and it was more real than anything I've encountered to this day. Because I know that reality is an illusion. That life is a divine mystery, but reality is an illusion. And this was spoken about by Sydney Banks. It was, it's something that's spoken about within the principles an awful lot, and it's such a beautiful thing to wake up, and when people wake up and realize they're living in separate realities. Well, why is, if there's 7.7 billion separate realities on Earth, who's seeing the true reality? Well, it's nobody, but that includes us. And I think this is why when somebody wakes up to this stuff, when somebody wakes up to this force, it will take the ego and it will just wring it out. Not for it not to create more ego, it will create ego into the future. But in that moment, and I can't explain why that takes place either. I have no idea why. The moment that took place, that experience took place, I have no idea to this day why it took away my depression. I have no idea why I no longer needed to be a hard man. I don't know. It's not something that's in the forefront of my awareness. It's not something in my intellect. It was beyond my intellect. I could probably try and hazard a guess, but I can't honestly say why. But knowing that this is what's going on, knowing that truly behind the entirety of experiential reality is this force of such magic. It just, no, I'm not afraid. It doesn't mean I don't get scared. I can be scared, but that's a superficial kind of fear. Deep down, I know everything is fine, even death. What's the worst that could happen? We'll die. Okay. Why are we afraid of death? Really, why are we afraid of death? Well, because it's an unknown. But so's where we were before we were born. And I really feel like in my observations of people, I really feel like, and people that have come to work with us, those that fear death are the people who are so more afraid to live.
Mm.
They're also the people that, because they don't want to look at it, create the illusion within themselves that their form is infinite, and their life will continue in this kind of sense, in the individual's sense, for eternity, because they won't confront death. I'll put it on my mind, which then kind of leads to this situation where I feel like people are getting real time to reflect on now with this COVID-19. But it means if we live in that mentality of I don't want to take death into account, and it creates that almost an idea that, well, I'm going to live forever kind of thing because I'm not prepared to look at it. It means people were prepared to put off their happiness to the future, or to do things. I'll wait till I retire to do all the things I want to do. One of the things Jen and I have both said is we're going to live our retirement throughout our lives. Do all the things we want to do as best we can. We're not too bothered about doing tons of stuff. We just want to enjoy what we do. And this is why Jesus' point about the best way you can serve God is by doing that you love. Because Jesus wasn't speaking of a God over there, or a God over there, or a God 2,000 years ago, or a God in the future when you die, or a God on a cloud, or a God in another universe. He was talking about the force that enlivens every single person in this universe, everything within it. Best way that you can serve yourself is to do that you love. Best way you can serve God is to do that you love. He was asked, where is God's kingdom? And his answer gave a few answers I've heard and read, and probably the most, God's kingdom is within the heart of every man, woman, and child. Everybody is the creative force of life, the mystery of life. Everybody's that. Another answer he gave was, where is God's kingdom? God's kingdom is all over the face of the earth, but mankind does not see it. It sees trees and mountains and lakes and rivers and buildings and phone masts and pylons and cars and aeroplanes and blah, 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 blah. It sees objects. It doesn't see the force that's constantly creating these things. Where is God's kingdom? God's kingdom is both inside of you and outside of you. Was another one. What creates the outside creates the inside. What creates the inside creates the outside. And I think it was that realization was the thing that allowed my fear to die. It was when I realized it was all a spiritual thing. And everybody is it. Whether they believe in it or not, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter. It's it, not believing in itself. And if it does discover itself, it's just it, realizing itself.
So, Dave, there's something there. It's beautiful. I never want to interrupt you.
No, feel free.
That flow. So there's some people watching here, there'll be people watching the replay, experiencing that fear. And it can be really misunderstood. It's like, oh, you're coming from ego and identity, and it's real. Within people's experience. But what I did love, what you were saying earlier, there's so much, I'm just trying to pull some threads here. About going from fear to love. And this current situation, if anyone's been struggling with their mental health, finding meaning, searching for meaning, overcoming the past, a lot of that is just about me, the individual, little me. Everything you've been saying, Dave, there is, you're not the little me. Your true identity is everything.
Sorry, Lawrence. You just broke up because my internet's unstable.
I think it might be mine. Sorry, I don't know what's taken there. It's this whole thing that I've seen it in my own life. When I'm suffering, it's all about me. My own little world, my own little perspective. Life's coming at me. And I feel completely separate from life. It's something you spoke to me about on Saturday. wisdom is not available to me. I don't have access to what I need to navigate whatever's going on in my life.
Right, we're back.
You came back.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I've gone into the 4G.
So yeah, I was just thinking about, I think, because I'm conscious of time, the big thing I'm hearing throughout all of this, for anyone watching, is when you step from the personal to the impersonal, something magical can happen when you see it. I think some people get scared of that. When we use the word God, people get scared of that.
Hotspot. Can you say that one more time?
I don't know if anyone's got any comments. This whole thing about stepping from the personal to the impersonal. From what I've seen, the internet worms, I think it's the internet's being crashed. I think David Icke must be live somewhere else, so everyone's watching him. But so anyway, it looks like we've got some technical gremlins here. I'm kind of frozen with Dave. There's so much in what Dave said. If anyone's got any questions they want to put on the chat. But what I'm going to take from it, when we see the illusion of that separation, when we see we're not separate, we can fall out of our thinking. And when I fall out of my thinking, something is revealed to me. You know, if someone's watching this, struggling with their mental health, like, well, that looks like it doesn't make sense as a strategy because we're so focused on our unique set of circumstances, our own problems. But that is what we most need to fall out of our thinking, that identified thinking, that fixation with the content of our experience, and that juxtaposition of us, not against life, but separate from life. What I'm taking from what a lot Dave was sharing. When you cut through that, when you fall out of that, you're back, you're falling in and out. I'm doing my best there, just carry on in the, the spirit. Just falling out of my thinking. That's okay. I'm just saying, Dave, when I fall out of my thinking, if anyone's watching this who does struggle with mental health, it's that fixation with the content. When I fall out of that, and I touch that awareness, that consciousness, that force that's there, but this goes quiet. You've talked a lot about the magic and the mystery of life. So I'm conscious of time. Last 5 minutes. If anyone's got any questions, want to post on the chat. But I asked you on Saturday, Dave, when we were talking about, I think I said, I bet in the current situation, you're not doing anything differently. Okay, you might be, looking after loved ones, caring, but basically how Dave is showing up in the world, exactly the same.
Not much has changed for us. We're kind of, we're supposed to just come back from Sweden today, I think. So our international travel stopped. But yeah, day to day, most of our work can be carried out like this, and the things that we enjoy doing, walking and cycling, we live in the Lake District. We're quite lucky we can get away from people and continue with that. And yeah, Yeah, not just when people start to realize that they are the creator, they are it. You look at what the mind is, it's a creative force. What does it create? It creates reality. It creates experience. When somebody wakes up to that point, you know, it neutralizes the world. Every event neutral. You know, people would say, was not neutral. If somebody's being bombed, if there's a load of people getting bombed, they must be terrified. And I've said to them, but I've known lads who've been at war who, when they're being bombed and shot at, they would say they've never felt so alive and they buzzed off it. But I also know people who've been to war who were so terrified at the similar kind of circumstance. So you see, it's not the outside world, it's not the event that's taking place that's creating the experience. If it was, that would, you know, everybody would experience the same. And so this kind of highlights what I love about Sid's message was what helped just transform a life was this going from an external reality to an internal reality. It's not to say the external world isn't playing the game of life, it's playing the game of life. But the reality that Dave encounters is entirely a manifestation of his mind. It's like, and how he thinks and what he believes. And when you see that's the only thing that's ever going on for anybody, you know that when you speak to somebody that they're absolutely whole, perfect and beautiful. I often describe it as like, it came to me one day, was stood up by one of the lakes, and you know, people come talk to us about their thoughts. I'm not a massive fan of the statement, you're feeling, you're thinking. Some people it really helps. For me personally, it narrows, it's too, no. Thought creates experience, it creates feelings, but thought creates experience. It lives, it enlivens. If you gain insight into thought, you get an insight into mind and consciousness. If you gain an insight into mind, you get an insight into consciousness and thought. And if you get an insight into consciousness, you get an insight into mind and thought. I think about all right the way around. But it's a singular force. This singular force coursing through us is creating reality continuously. But it doesn't look like it. And because we've done it since we were born, we've never questioned it.
Mm.
And so I think when people start to wake up to that, they start to wake up to, first and foremost, they're absolutely fine. You know, illness itself cannot dictate our well-being, cannot take away well-being. And I think that people start to become interested in life. So all of a sudden people wake up and they start to see magic in life. They realize it's a magical thing. And it's an inexplicable event. I think in terms of as a human being living, it allows us to live with far less fear. Once we get onto the trick, once we start to see the trick, it means that we can go out into the world and we fear less. It's not to say every now and again we won't get upset, forget about it and get upset and get angry or get worried or this, that and the other, or get lost in a story. But that's all it is. It's a story of mind. It's a story of thought. And I know that I never experience fear unless I'm placing my well-being onto, or unless I'm caught in the outside illusion that the world or time is this experience for me. But the moment I come back to that, I've severed that cord between outside and inside, cause and effect. There is no cause and effect. There is just this continuous experiential happening within our being. Whatever we think about a situation is how things appear to us. That will be the reality that we encounter in our life. whatever beliefs we blindly walk around with is colouring the world that we see. And it's all right. It's all right to do that. It's all right to have the beliefs. It's absolutely fine. It makes no odds, other than it's colouring the world that we see. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But to an individual's life, when they start to wake up and see that this is what's going on, and one of the things that quite often happens for people is that ego gets shown to them in their face, and they start to realise the kind of thinking they've been living out of. It's a deeply humbling thing.
Well, someone's just commented actually, so talks to that. Sometimes one has to take a step back in order to clear the pathway ahead. And I've aligned that to what Dave's saying about taking a step back in the biggest sense. Not taking a step back from my life, what I need to do, just taking that big step back. And something will be revealed.
I think is if you get the opportunity to, through you and feel it, that you are part of the bigger picture. So then if you look around and you see, I am part of nature as much as everything else around me. If you can see that, you realize how nothing you are, because everything that you believe you are not, because that is so insignificant that it makes you so nothing and equally so much at the same time, because you then become part of the infinite. And because you are part of that, you, the person you believe you are, becomes nothing. And then all the fears and the feeling becomes irrelevant, because they are coming through your belief of who you are. But that is all made up, that's all ego. Because when you realize that you are none of that, but exactly the same as everything else around you, then what are you scared of? I think is understanding that fear is coming from the limitations that you believe you have. But there is no limitation, because you are part of the whole thing.
Dave?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
And
sort of just wanted to add a couple of bits to that. Yeah, I mean, people often do say we're all connected. To say we're connected suggests we could be disconnected.
Yeah.
Or could suggest that we are many things creating one. That would be connection. Many things creating one. But if you turn that on its head and realize it's one thing creating many things, you realize it's not that we're connected, it's that we're all one. And that includes every single thing that takes place in this universe, every single thing that takes place on this planet, every single event, coronavirus, technology, life and death. We're not connected. We're all the same thing. Everything is it. We're just playing the game of many. I love what you said. That was beautiful. Thanks, lovely.
Lovely. Conscious of time, is there any other comments anyone wanted to share? One thing I was going to add, giving people a moment there, kind of on the same theme. It's that Sydney Banks quote. There's nothing on the outside that can hurt you. There's nothing on the outside that can help you, because there is no outside. I've always loved that. But for anyone watching all the way to the end, thank you. That's psychologically. Beyond form. People can misunderstand that. What do you mean? It's like everything Dave's been talking to. Everything is coming from within. You know, the way I coach Dave, it's a bit different, my approach. It's all founded in the same deep wisdom. It's been around forever. When people say, you know, you said the creation coming from within. I like to give people some volition within that. You are the creator. To give them a sense of they're playing a role. There's a responsibility within that. Just to give people a chance to, okay, yeah, I'm involved. That power is within me. So for anyone, I don't know, I just want to round it off there, that talking to Fernanda's point, that creative power to create the illusion of separation, the individuality, the beliefs. Wonderful, we have that power. But we also have that power within us to step beyond that, to cut through it like a knife through butter, and to let go of that. And there's a thank you from Anita.
Well, thank you, Anita.
A lovely reminder of our innate wholeness. So final words, Dave. That innate wholeness. I think that's really helpful right now with the world in chaos. It was always in a different kind of chaos. It's a chaos we're all involved in now.
I think chaos comes from us believing that life's predictable, or that we live in a known. Because then when something happens, we think it was an unknown. But no, life's an unknown. It's all an unknown. The known's the illusion.
That is perfect. Anyone watching to the end, just sit with what Dave just said. And don't try and work it out. Don't analyze it with your intellect. Sit with it. And I pretty much guarantee something will emerge from that. Maybe a new way of seeing, just in this moment. But get curious about that. So I'd like to thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is say formally goodbye to the world and the internet. And we're just going to, what I call, do the green room for a minute and say our goodbyes. But everyone out there, I'd like to thank Dave.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Thanks, Dave.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Lovely. Right, I'm going to sign off. See you again soon. Thank you.
Love, everybody. Take care. Keep safe.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye, Lawrence. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, I need to press recording. There we go. Stop cloud.